On the fourth day of Christmas, the Tigercast gave to me player number 4 for the best 23 of December. We've already started off with 3 cracking players, putting together a really nice midfield. The position-wise, the players behind the calendar are all in a random order, so I don't actually know what positions are coming up next, but it's a very, very good start. I'll bring up who we've opened up so far, and then we'll get on to number 4. So at the moment, as you can see, we've opened up days 1, 2, and 3, giving us Taranto, Nankervis, and Sam Lawler. What a starting trio. And I think, even though this is a best 23 for December, I think that that's a pretty odds-on chance to actually happen in round 1 in real life. So hopefully it keeps trajecting that way. But we are here today to open up door number 4 and see what we have in store for us behind the Tigercast Richmond Advent Calendar. So with that said, behind door number 4 is Ben Miller, another defender. Very, very good. Look, I know he's divided a lot of people, Ben Miller, over the journey, and sometimes I wonder why that's the case, to be sort of a little bit honest. I feel like he's been one of our most improved and one of our most important players for a couple of years now. And I've said this before, but even in 2024, he had a really good year up until the last sort of 3 or 4 games of the season where it kind of went to shit, not only for him, but for the whole team in total. And everyone was playing like rubbish. And everyone, as supporters, I felt like latched on to that version of Ben Miller, forgetting the first 3 quarters of the year where he was winning all his one-on-one contests. He was ranked in the top 5 or 10 in the AFL for defenders. And that was the Ben Miller we knew. And then 2025 rolls around, he gets the number 12, and he's still copping shit from people. And it just blew my mind. But that to one side, Miller had a really, really good 2025 season. Between him, obviously Bolter played a bit of a role down there as well. Tyler Young at stages 2. Very much pivotal to not leaking as many goals as maybe we could have. Now, I know that sounds a little bit silly because we did lose some games by some bigger margins. We did concede some goals, but I actually put a lot of that down to the lack of defensive pressure in the midfield. I actually thought our defense, speaking more broadly of the defensive 6 unit, I actually think it stood up super well in such trying circumstances, like the amount of ball that was coming inside defensive 50 and the quality of ball that we were letting opposition have. I thought our defenders did well, and that was led largely, I think, by Ben Miller. Not only was his intercept marking game really good, get some timely spoils in, he's not afraid to peel off his man, but I think as well, it was what changed the game for him was his skill set. He's kicking, biting off some really dangerous kicks and hitting some really good targets and making quicker decisions, which is something EJ was pretty big on during the year. But we'll jump across now to the best 22 team sheet and we'll see where we can slot him in and we'll talk through it a little bit more. Alrighty, so here we go with the best 22 selection sheets. As you can see, we've got our 3 positions filled out already. Toby Nankervis in the ruck, Tim Taranto in the centre, and Sammy Lawler as the rover. Ben Miller, well, I suppose the conversation, we know he's going to be either centre half back or full back. I think we can sort of lock one of those 2 positions in. But to dig a little bit deeper, I guess the thought that comes to mind is, and it's maybe not so much about Ben Miller, but it's more about Noah Bolter. Where do we think that Noah Bolter is of most benefit to us in a back 6? Now, granted, I do fully understand that even though it's mapped out like a halfback, centre halfback, and back pockets and fullback, that we do operate very much as a back 6 who cover for each other and move into different positions. So I get that. But for the purpose of what we're looking at here visually, I just think that as a team, we would benefit more from Noah Bolter being the one that's higher up the ground as a centre halfback to utilise his run and carry, his burst of speed out of defensive 50, his 55, 60 metre kick, to be able to clear zones and get it hopefully closer towards our forward 50 area. I just think he probably creates a bit more of a point of difference for us in that spotting and offers something a bit more aggressive and attacking than what Ben Miller does. And that's not a slight on Miller, that's just that players have different strengths and different things they do well. Miller defends a lot better, I think, than what Noah Bolter does. And for those reasons, I think we're going to drop Ben Miller. We're going to drop him in at fullback. And again, like I said, there's no doubt he would float around and play different roles, but he's got pretty good closing speed and he probably can play on some medium guys as well. And it's going to be really interesting because we would assume Noah Bolter will slot in at centre half back at some point. And then the other player of height that's going to be interesting to see how he works alongside Miller and Bolter is going to be Josh Gibcus, and even to a lesser extent Luke Trainer, although he's probably got a bit more flexibility in the roles he could play. But to see a trio of Miller, Gibcus, and Bolter, if we can keep that locked in for most weeks of the year and let them settle and grow together, I think it's sort of the nucleus of a really, really good big back three, if you want to call it that. But Miller for 2026, the things I want to see from him, it's more of what he was doing in the back half of the year. It's those quick decision-making bits of play. So when he marks the ball deep, or even in the middle of the defensive 50, early on in the year, and even in 2024, he was taking maybe just a little bit too long to make the decision on what to do with the ball. And what that does is that allowed the opposition to set up their zone accordingly, and we just didn't have that free-flowing counter-attacking ball movement. And that's what EJ was sort of pointing out throughout the year on the Monday night shows. But what we saw as the season got on is Miller was starting to really make instinctively good decisions with ball in hand, taking off some ridiculous passes that we probably hadn't seen him try before, but he was nailing. And more importantly, a player like him intercept marking the amount of times that he does can be so instrumental in switching play. And the one thing I don't think I saw enough of last year, and this isn't a Ben Miller thing specifically, it's a whole defensive thing, but he can sort of lead the charge on it, is whenever we mark the ball, let's say to the right-hand side, let's say we mark the ball around this area here. What we tended to do is we would go back on the mark and we would just kick it down the line to the wing. That was our go-to play, let's call it 95% of the time. And I don't know if it's just because that's the phase of we're at with our football, we hadn't implemented other things yet. But what we did do for the other 5% of the time, and what other teams do to us quite a lot, is if they mark the ball here, they've often got an outlet over here for a quick switch, which then forces the opposition to have to shift their zone, and we've got players loose on the other side, and it just opens up gaps to be able to pierce through. Now, when you're trying to end up playing a quick, fast-moving brand of football, being able to execute that quick switch and shift a zone is going to be pivotal, and I think Miller can play a massive role in this part because his kicking's improved significantly. He's going to take the intercept marks, and he can be sort of the gatekeeper, if you want, of this type of set play, or he can be the player on the receiving end of the switch kick from someone else over here and then gets the ball moving again. But either way, Ben Miller's got a big role for 2026. The key forwards don't get any easier to defend, unfortunately. They're only getting bigger and better, but I think he's done a super job, and I think consistency is going to be the key for him in terms of the personnel around him. I thought he and Tyler Young had a really good partnership out there. So as much as it hurt losing Tyler Young, obviously we got Zane Piker in return ultimately in the draft, which we won't probably see for a little bit. But I think we've got enough coverage there to help partner up Ben Miller and get the best out of him. So easy pick for the back line. Let me know what you think about my justification for him being fullback against centre half back. I'm keen to hear if everyone's on the same page as me or if there's a different train of thought. But otherwise, I cannot see Miller changing from my 22 from now to Jan, Feb, March, April, all the way through. He will be locked and loaded at the fullback position, and we love having him on board. So make sure you like and subscribe for more Richmond content, and make sure you tune in tomorrow for day number 5. Go Tigers!